Hello everybody, welcome to Crafty Soup. Today I have a layout process video for you featuring strong horizontal design and some hand stitching. So let's go ahead and get started. I have these photos of my girls having a sunshine day out on the grass on their picnic blanket, and they saw the camera coming and they cringed. They're getting a little tired of mom taking their picture at every little opportunity, and I said, but what am I going to do for YouTube? And they just kind of laughed at me. So anyway, they did let me take their picture, and I've got this layout for you today. So I pulled out my counterfeit kit for the month of September, and if you haven't seen my kit build, I will leave you links so you can check that out. And I'm going to go ahead and get started with this layout. Now these photos are 3x4s, and in my kit I had created all of these little frames to be not necessarily photo frames, but like embellishment cluster frames and such, but I wanted to go ahead and use one of them as its intended use as a photo frame. And my photos were a little bit off in size, so I went ahead and trimmed that down, and I've got that photo ready to go. For the other photos, I'm using these little corner bits that were left over from making those frames, and if you haven't seen that video, I've got that where I make some tassels and the frames, and I show you how to use the We Are Memory Keepers frame punch board. And then it leaves these little bits behind that I'm using as photo corners, so that's what's going on there. I decided to pop up my focal photo on some leftover foam from other projects, and so I've got that going on. And so my strong horizontal design is coming from these kind of banners that I'm going to use to anchor each photo to the layout. And I am making the banners slightly different sizes. There will be a bigger banner up at the top for my focal photo, and the two smaller photos at the bottom will have smaller banners, or the two less focal photos at the bottom will have smaller banners. There we go. And then you can see me starting to build up some bits and pieces, and partially I'm doing that to make sure things are going to fit, because I've had a time lately of getting to the embellishing part and having not left enough room. So I'm trying to avoid that mistake going on here. So you'll see me bounce around a little bit between different areas of the layout as I'm making sure that everything is going to fit. Once I've got all three of my banners in place, I go ahead and give them a little bit of a fluff with my fingers to give them some dimension, pardon my head, and I set them all in place where they're going to be, and I use my T-ruler a little bit to help get them straight, because trying to eyeball it was not working. And I go ahead and move on to my title, and I'm going to further emphasize this horizontal design with some stitching, and that stitching is going to underline my title up there at the top, and I wanted to get all my title bits in place before I did that to make sure that there was enough room. And what I'm doing here with the T-square ruler is that I'm marking every ½ inch, and then I'm going to use those pencil marks to poke holes with my paper piercer and my foam mat, which I just pulled on screen there. And that's because I'm going to use a chunky twine to stitch. I am not using regular thread, and a regular needle will not work for this chunky twine. And I go through the process of trying a few different things, and here I end up enlarging the holes with a pair of tweezers, actually. And then I remembered I have this needle that is used for knitting and crochet work, and so that one will definitely work with chunky twines. And so I go ahead and grab that, and luckily I had 3 of them, so I'm just going to throw this needle into my scrapbook supplies, and it will be used in here from now on for all of my chunky fibers that I like to put on layouts. If you don't do a lot of stitching, here is what I do. So I went ahead and thread my needle, and I start on the back side, and this is a good reason to have those holes pre-punched, because this needle and this thread isn't made for doing this, so it could rip and tear your paper. And I just go one hole over as I'm stitching, and this is just called a running stitch, and there's lots of other kinds of stitches, but this is kind of the easiest way if you're not comfortable with stitching. Now I am just pulling my thread back because I had too much thread going on, but when I get to the end I tape it down, and I taped it under where the photo is going to hide it, and then I tape it down on the back. Now you see that leaves a dashed line of stitching, and if you want all of those stitches to be filled in, you just repeat this exact same process, but start at the hole where the gap is, and then you just continue stitching one hole over and that'll fill in all the gaps. Now there is another kind of stitch called a back stitch, and I have shown that on other things before, but I just wanted to show you this method. If you don't have experience with stitching and it intimidates you, this is the easiest way for beginners to get started. With everything adhered down for the basis of my project, I'm going to use this frame down here at the bottom to contain my journaling, and I am just creating some even lines with a micron pen to be my journaling lines. And then I'm going to go ahead and glue that frame down so that's in place, and then I can start building up a few embellishment clusters as I go to try and go ahead and just get all of these design elements on the page. I am using a mixture of various natural elements, cork, wood grain, and such, combined with different florals and a spot of gold because that is an element that I've got going on in my kit. I really like these little wood grain log slices that they were a discontinued product from Stampin' Up, and they're pretty fun, and I liked to tie that on to the previous stitching up there at the top as a little kind of medallion style embellishment up there. And this bird here, I have had this in my stash for so many years, and I never thought I would get it onto a layout. And here I am tucking it in there, and I'm just going to make it work. Just because the pictures were taken outside, I am sticking a bird on it. And then I fuss with a few extra embellishments here and there, layering bits up. And that is where I'm going to call this layout good. So I will leave you with a few close-up pictures. If you got something helpful out of this video, I would appreciate it if you could give it a like, because that does help my channel. And I will be back on Friday with my Freebies Friday video, where I show you a sketch as well as an electronic cut file and create a project with that. And then you can download the sketch and cut files for free. So do join me then. I'll see you next time.